Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and bringing my friend Veiled Shot onto the channel. We're going to talk about a couple different things. I have been away from the scene here for about a week or so, swamped with other projects. So we're going to talk about, is it time to quit or time to get excited? Is this big update coming going to be something that revitalizes players? And we'll kind of go through the highlights of it and talk with Veiled Shot. We'll bounce ideas back and forth, bounce opinions back and forth, and all that. So let's get into it. Alrighty, how you been, Veiled? I know I haven't been able to touch base with you in depth or bring you on the channel here for like 2 weeks or so. So how you been doing?
It's been a long couple of days. You missed a pretty hype session of drama yesterday. Blizzard had a quick mistranslation in their patch notes, and they said that every server is gonna be dropping Paragon level by like 70. So
I did see that. Yeah.
I was like sitting there. I was like, no, guys, we're literally going to be stalled for a month and a half. But I've been bumping out the videos for Diablo Immortal. I'm decently excited about this update.
Yeah, because the server we play on's like server 400, right? About.
Cool. Yeah, just about. We're at 392, I think, today. So 320 would have been a major drop.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that's it. But is that a good thing because it's gonna like equalize the playing field and kind of drop things back, give everybody a chance to catch up? Or
I would say, I mean, it's not happening because they ended up having a typo, but what they meant to say is any server below 320 will be boosted up.
Yep.
And then they fixed it.
And then they're also going to be increasing the bonus, right, from like 400 to 800, so people can catch up super fast.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. And also we have a double XP event going on. So it's 1600% experience, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, so basically they're trying to get it to a point where kind of everybody who's at least trying is going to be server Paragon and is going to be able to like participate in everything.
Exactly.
Yep. So I did read through this. I saw like the new difficulties and the stuff about the Paragon system and what are like the highlights here that we need to discuss in the context of like the super hype or whether it's big or not.
So first off is the XP. Like I mentioned, you'll be able to easily catch up, but they also added something that they didn't really have before. They have up to 250% drop rate increase for people below server Paragon. To be honest, if they just left that in the game permanently, just like you don't even have to be below server Paragon, I think that'd be awesome. But
yeah, I like it should have been. I read that and I was like, oh, this was such a missed opportunity. I did. Sorry, I didn't mean to like steal your thunder here, but you got me excited about that because that reminded me of a point. But didn't they also add like a guaranteed Lego after your third dungeon or something? So now you definitely want to make sure and run 3 dungeons a day, right?
Yeah, so I feel like with this daily activities, they're turning it into more of a mobile game experience, which I think is a good thing. They've added, if you complete a bestiary, you get a guaranteed legendary. If you do your 4 bounties a day, you get a higher chance to drop legendaries. And if you complete 3 dungeons, you get a guaranteed set of them. So almost like you log into the day, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do my 4 bounties. I'm gonna do 10 monstrous essence. I'm gonna do 3 dungeons. And then maybe I'll do some, extra grinding or whatever. So they do the daily activities, which I think is an amazing change. And it really does feel more like a mobile game where you're like, log in, do my dailies, log off,
Yeah, absolutely. And that workflow is gonna be what, like 90 minutes? Like to do the bounties, do the 3 set pieces, get a bestiary.
Yeah, it might even be a little bit shorter. I know I could do a bestiary. If you're in like an open world farming group, you could do it in like 30, 45 minutes. If you're solo, it might take you an hour. Yeah, it's gonna be around that 60 to 90 minutes range to do everything. But on top of that, they have so many other, kind of, I guess you could say, changes in terms of like progression mechanics, because they've actually, I mean, even though you haven't really been potentially playing the game, we're always doing the Heliquary raids and things like that. So you're basically caught up on all that aspect because you've been doing your Heliquary raids with us. So they've actually added an additional set of progression towards it with the new bosses. And they've also added the new hell difficulties. So The tricky part is, do you like the current grinding system? And if you do, they're adding more of it, right? Because they just basically extended that portion, but they've also made it a little bit easier with the daily activities. And they've also made some quality of life changes to make your whole experience a little bit better. We could talk a little bit about those as well here.
Yeah, so, you know, for where I stand right now, like Veiled said, I haven't quit the game yet. I still, you know, do my part in my warband and stuff like that. It's just been hard for me to, if I'm just being candid, to get the motivation to really like grind the game. I'm the biggest Diablo fanboy you'll ever meet. I'm gonna cover Diablo 4. I was a content creator for Diablo 3. I love Diablo 2 remastered. So I don't say any of that to be negative or anything. It's just been hard for me to get the motivation. And I'll tell you kind of why here in a little bit. And you can let me know if this patch changes that at all. But the main sticking point for me is not being able to do anything to help my gems or resonance. That's the main sticking point. So unless something addresses that, if I'm just being real, it's going to be hard for me to really be excited about diving in.
Yeah, and I completely understand that, because I also feel a similar way in that if I were to play the game as someone who like enjoys the game a ton, like I would typically, for example, like when D4 comes in, as you're saying, we're going to be jumping in the game, we're going to be jumping in to play 12, 14, 15, whatever amount of hours a day, and we're going to have fun doing it, and we're actually going to be able to progress our characters. Whereas like in this game, they're putting a lot of focus into combat rating, which actually I'll touch on a little bit here, because they're actually changing how that works a little bit. So it might actually change your perspective a little bit. But as for gems and resonance, that's a major portion of how you get a lot of your strength, because that comes damage, that's your life, and then everything scales off that, right? Armor pen, percentage multiplier on your damage, which is resonance, right? So everything works off resonance. And to be honest, there isn't really any big changes, I would say, to change that at all. I know they're adding like some new events that are going to be new legendary crests, and they also have the pearls. So if you've been doing that, you're going to have that kind of minute progression, but it's not going to be anywhere to compare against someone like 5k plus resonance. There's no way you're going to touch them. 3k resonance, maybe you'll get a little bit closer to that, but 5k resonance, there's no way. Like, you'll never compete.
Okay, cool, thank you. And then let me know the thing that you thought might change my perspective, please.
So yeah, there was something hidden. So Blizzard did something strange here, and I'm not going to say this 100% confirmed, because they released the English patch notes, and what they've done is they actually hid, or maybe they just omitted something from the English patch notes compared to the Chinese patch notes. So the Chinese patch notes has other additional mechanics in it. They're adding 100 new challenge rift levels. They're adding additional upgrades to your set items and legendary gear. They're also adding changes to how combat rating works. They mentioned in that patch, or in the Chinese patch notes, that they said combat rating is too important. And I think we both have said this before. It feels a little silly to push challenge rifts if you don't have the combat rating, because there's no way you can kind of outplay that. There is some things you can do, but for the most part, it's combat rating blocked. And they're saying that they're going to dial that back and change how punishing and change how effective combat rating is. I don't know how much, maybe it's only a little bit, so it won't change too much. And they're also going to increase the viability of secondary attributes. What I'm guessing is, your legendary rain of beneficial effects, like the magic attributes that you're getting, I imagine they're going to increase that, or they may even increase the actual legendary items themselves. I'm not quite sure. It's a little ambiguous, and they also omitted it completely from the English patch notes.
Yeah, they've always been doing that.
I don't know why.
Yeah, that drives me nuts.
I have no idea.
But to talk about that, yeah, that's what I liked about like Diablo 3 is like there is no combat rating, so you can kind of punch above your weight a little bit. If you're a super skilled player, you might be able to clear GR 100s, whereas if a noob was playing your exact character, they might max out at like level 80, 85 just because they're not as good at the game. So I really disliked that about the combat rating, because like when we're doing our Heliquary raids, I wish it was like, yeah, the person with higher combat rating, they do more damage and they take less damage and it's a little bit easier for them. But at least like somebody that's not quite at the combat rating could like try to contribute, and if they play really well and if they avoid everything. But like it's mostly like, okay, if there's like a dust of sand that gets kicked up, it kills you. It's like, well, I mean,
Yeah, as soon as you're about 400 combat rating below anything, you're like, all right, well, I can't really participate at all. Like, at least if you're like 100, 200 combat rating below, you can do some damage and you can participate and not get one shot. But as soon as you reach like 400 or below, you literally get one shot by anything and you don't do any damage, so you can't do anything. Like, you're basically useless.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I just wanted to provide a little bit of my perspective on that, but go ahead. You were talking about like the combat rating and the Chinese patch notes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it seems that they're going to be changing it how it works. Now, as I said, it's a little ambiguous, but they use the keywords. They said enhance secondary attributes, and they're going to reduce the efficiency or effectiveness of combat rating. This may change the perspective. Like, grinding your normal gems might be a way you can actually effectively increase your power rating. Maybe getting your additional secondary attributes. Maybe they'll increase the viability of armor pen or damage secondary attributes rather than just full on committed to combat rating. And maybe that's the way you can actually progress versus, just hard getting capped. So we'll have to see how effective that is, because again, we don't know what they're going to do, but it looks like they're looking into it, which is nice to see.
Okay, cool. And the other highlights on here would be like Vithu's got rebalanced. The blacksmith at the end of the dungeons, that's amazing. Ancient elites in dungeons is great. Yeah, they're at least trying. Like they're doing some cool stuff. It's just the elephant in the room. Like I need a way to level up my gems and acquire gems and residents,
Yeah, as you're saying, they've actually done quite a few good things. The blacksmithing in the dungeons is something that we've kind of just been like, guys, it's like a 10-second process. It's not really a big deal to just offer it in the dungeon. It just makes it more smooth. So just give us that. As you're saying, they're actually doing a lot of balance changes. But I find probably the most balance changes that I've ever seen them do, because they're adjusting the set items, which is something that I think they should have done way long ago. There's just some sets that are just kind of trash, to be honest. Like Vithus was just absurdly strong, and almost every class wanted to run a 4-piece Vithus. And then you have things like Windloft or Isator, where it's like, yeah, you can run it, but it's like only viable in this one specific area. And they also did a bunch of balance changes for the monk, but only the monk. They're adjusting like the range, the charge time for some of the abilities, which is really cool. I just wish that they expanded upon that to every other class. Like, it seems weird that they're just focusing monk. Like, I think satyr could have used some, and I think barb could have used some. Especially all three of the melee classes could have used a bunch of like charge time reductions and radius increases. Like, that's basically what they did for monk, and I think both of the other classes could have used that as well.
Yeah, that's been a struggle. I know we always have like our tier list that we keep up to date, which we're probably getting close to being due to getting that done at some point this week. Again here, a new version. But yeah, the melee classes have always been behind. And it looks like the monk, they're kind of like trying to adjust that a little bit, but they didn't touch the barb or the satyr.
Yeah, and I would say there's really, out of all this stuff, like there's the 5 new legendary gems, which honestly isn't really important into like how the game changes. They're just kind of cool. Some of the new events, there's a kind of cool Christmas event, looks like it's going to be coming. But for the most part, there really isn't anything else in the patch except for one major thing, and that is going to be the new Heliquary rework, as I mentioned earlier. They're making it much more easy to participate because you can actually solo the raids. So if
I saw that, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, you could,
I never thought they would do that, because I thought they would like trying to force. They've always been trying to force this warband thing down everybody's throats. So I'm surprised they did that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be you can solo the warband raids or if it's just like solo non-warband raids, but at least you can solo them if you're someone who just wants to play the game by yourself. And then they're also making it so new players. So this is actually good. I look at it as like, we're content creators. It's like, okay, how are they going to help the new players? Where they're making it so they're making all helpful 1 through 4 dungeons like Elder Rifts, where it scales to each individual's combat rating, so you can actually group up with other people, get drops for your respective hell difficulty, but the amount of people, the pool of people is way larger, so that's going to really help a bunch of new players. And then there's one last thing which I personally really enjoy, and probably my favorite part about the update. And I don't know for sure if this is true. They didn't specify. So previously, when you looked at hell difficulties, it was like, okay, you have a combat rating and you have a minimum level, right? Now, all it says here, as of the Heliquary, they say you can unlock the new hell difficulties by beating a Heliquary boss. It doesn't say anything about minimum levels. So if that's true, and they don't have a minimum level, that makes it very encouraging for the next 2 months, 3 months, because I'll actually be able to grind my combat rating up to access the new health difficulties without having to wait for the server paragon to meet me at that level, if that makes sense. So I can actually grind up the difficulties without waiting for the server to tell me when I can actually do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, for sure. Okay, so is there anything else we missed then, or we want to make sure and cover? You know, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to check it out and see if it's something that really ignites my fire again here to get in there every night and grind it hard, or if I'm gonna transition to like Diablo 3 seasons and Diablo 4 and all that. I'll have to kind of talk with everybody and see.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, if I don't think the game's really going to change a whole lot in terms of resonance or style of game. Like, I think you're in it for the hell difficulties. You're in it to run a couple dungeons a day. You're in it for the daily mobile game. And then maybe down the line, they'll add a PvP mode. And that's when you're like, oh, I'm glad I played the game every day for, you know, a few months or whatever. But we'll have to see. I guess they teased, you know, the data mines teased a couple of PvP modes. So we didn't get those yet. But if they do come, you know, it might be worthwhile that we have grinded this whole time. Knows.
There you go. Alrighty, well, I will link to Veiled Shot's channel down below. Definitely check out his stuff, and I appreciate you stopping by to discuss some of this this new update stuff with me. And yeah, we'll chat again soon, man. Have a good one.